Well, the clock has struck 2 and the music just found a way to dim. Bethany, you are so on it. Well done. How's everybody doing? Most of
I'm
you.
doing great.
Good. How are you, Bethany? I could see your face too.
I'm doing good. Staying out
Good.
of that rain.
Staying out of the rain. Yeah, yeah. It is. We've been so spoiled by sunshine recently that what goes around comes around in Northeast Ohio. I am excited for today's conversation. And it's just that it's going to be much more of a conversation than hopefully Amy and I just teaching you guys. If you're able to put video on, that makes it far better of an experience for us. We're not going to force it, but the more that do, the more dynamic the conversation becomes. You are here to learn about money. We titled this class "Money, Money, Money, Money," and believe it or not, that was not accidental. We're here to talk about the 4 types of money and what it should mean for you and your world. We're going to do brief intro, Amy and I, to talk about kind of our initial introduction to this conversation. Let's not get ahead of ourselves, Amy. But I want you to be thinking, what's the one question you have about money in your world that you'd love for us to maybe begin to address today? So I'm gonna ask you to chime in, whether in the chat or by unmuting yourself, to share that in just a minute. With that said, Amy, why don't you introduce yourself, and then I'll come on the wings of that.
Yeah, so I am Amy Myers Guthrie. I have been in real estate since 2015. Transitioned over to Keller Williams, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago. Grew my business over there, had a team at Keller Williams, and really just being at this company and seeing what people around me are doing has really expanded my horizons of what I can do with my money. I think, I'm at a stage in life, and being in real estate, I've never made the type of money that I've been able to make in real estate. And it's taken me a while to kind of take the leap and invest my money instead of just holding on to it and kind of pigeonholing it for later. But just seeing what people are doing around me and learning from them and their structures has been life-changing for me with my journey with money.
What did you, before real estate, what did you do from an income standpoint, career standpoint, job standpoint?
And so I was in retail management. I went to school for fashion merchandising. Shortly after graduating, I took a manager position with Coach Handbags. And I worked with Coach Handbags for almost 13 years, which seems crazy thinking back about it. And what made me leave retail was a couple things. Schedule, I worked every weekend. I had 1 weekend off per month, and earning potential. I got to a point where I didn't have a next level that I wanted to do. And I knew that my income was capped. Maybe I would make a 3%, have a 3% raise if I was doing well every single year, but I was pretty much tapped with my earning potential. That's when I decided to make a change to real estate. And I was lucky enough that I had a partner at that time that made enough to support both of us that I could get into real estate full time. And then a couple years after being in real estate, he joined me in real estate then.
Gotcha. So you were coming from a very, if I'm hearing correctly, a very consistent W-2 every 2 weeks or so. You were getting a check that was consistent,
Yeah.
and you could count on.
Yep.
And so you made a move to real estate for a variety of reasons, but one of those was much higher opportunity. But with opportunity, you sacrifice stability, and you've lived to tell the tale. And I think that's common. That the arc of that story is common for many of us. Part of my job is to talk with people about their careers in real estate and why real estate and what can it do for you. And usually flexibility. Hey, I don't want to. Someone telling me what to do all the time. I'd like to be able to operate in my terms and my timing. But then the financial opportunity of real estate that in reality, many people fail to realize simply because they're not willing to run smart businesses as you have.
Mhm.
You don't need to give specifics, Amy, but from when you transition from retail to a few years into real estate, like how quickly,
Yeah.
how long did it take for you to begin making a good deal more in real estate than you were in the
So
retail?
I'm transparent about, what I made in retail and transitioning over to real estate.
Right?
So whenever I left my full-time store manager job at Coach, my salary was around 70 per year.
Okay.
And I could get bonuses and make, a little bit more than that. My first full year in real estate, I made that. Now, whenever I started, my first like half year I didn't, but my first
Yeah.
full year in real estate, I made what I made in retail management. Now I worked my butt off, like
Yeah.
I worked night and day, and that's something about this business. You can work as much or as little as you want. I was like the work as much as I could because I knew what I lacked in experience. I needed to make up in grit. I just had to work harder than my competition to get where I
Yeah.
wanted to be. So I thought that was pretty cool. That was my goal for my first year to match what I made in retail, and I did it. I do miss my healthcare. That's the biggest thing I miss, but I don't regret anything else other than that.
Um, One last question, then I'll tell you guys a little bit about my background as it relates to this. Talk with us a little bit about your background as it relates to financial savvy, understanding how money grows, investing. Like, were you raised in a home where it was talked about regularly, or did you come in wanting to make more but clueless?
I was raised in a home that was very much like you don't use credit cards. If you don't have the cash, you don't buy it. Like we never knew how to leverage debt to make income. Like that was a scary thing. Very Dave Ramsey way of thinking was
Yeah.
the way that I was raised. But that was a good thing because I never got myself into trouble out of the gate. Like I think a lot of people they get themselves into a hole and they're trying to dig themselves out of a hole because of the way that I was raised. I never did that. I was always too scared to do that.
Hmm.
Um, and really everything that I'm applying right now, I've learned from people in my world here in Keller Williams and people that I've met along the way, and just learning from people who were already doing it.
Yep. And so then you transition to, hey, I'm earning more than I ever used to. You had a period, if I'm understanding correctly, of I'm just socking away money because I'm not used to making more money, but I'm not really making savvy decisions about it. And now, and not to get ahead of ourselves from a tactics standpoint, you're at a place where tell us what your goal is as it relates to passive versus active income.
This year, I'm going to make as much passive income as I do active income. And my active income is selling real estate. But all my extra money that I make from selling real estate gets put over to the passive side to help me make more from the passive side.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's the goal. And that's we'll get deeper into the tactics of that a little bit later on in our conversation. But for you guys to hear, and Amy's not just a top producer who's sold a bunch of homes and made good money doing that. She's had a transition from a place of I'm making money, but I don't know what to do with it, to I'm a place where my money makes me more money than I do. And if that's not a goal for anyone on this call, it should be, because that's when the freedom and the options and the flexibility actually come in. Because we know a lot of people get into this industry for freedom, and then they just find that if they're doing it right, they just have a million other bosses, which creates a different set of challenges. My background, just briefly, I grew up in a ministry home. My dad was a pastor, so we didn't make loads of money. But one thing he did really well, I remember when I was 12 years old, he took me to meet with his financial advisor And the only thing that I remember from that conversation was the power of compound interest. So they gave me the kind of like, hey, if you were to invest $10 a week starting at this age, fast forward 60 years, what would that become? And as a kid, again, I was young and immature, and I wanted to buy CDs more than I wanted to invest in CDs, pun intended. I I got a perspective of the importance of time and money working together to help you build wealth. And so my career was, before this, was in higher education. I worked in higher ed, and I was actually just on the Social Security site. For those who didn't know, you can go to the Social Security Administration site and see kind of what you've earned each year in taxable income and what that would create for you if you were to start taking Social Security in theory today. And I had a lot of years where I didn't make much money at all. But part of my path into real estate, and those who know me have heard me say this before, was in the financial opportunity in real estate, not just from selling homes, but in being in the world of real estate. I'm going to say when you're in real estate, you have an unfair advantage than most of the world does to building wealth, because you know more, you have more access, you have more understanding of the levers that enable you to grow your wealth. So that's my background. Before we transition into kind of some of the structured conversation, I would love to hear from 4 of you, either in the chat or by unmuting yourself. What's a question that you bring to this conversation as it relates to getting money working? Working on becoming okay with silence. So I'm gonna just try and sit in some for a minute here. Blake, you raised your hand. Go ahead.
Hey, how's it going?
Great.
So I came across someone just recently who had mentioned that they kind of challenged the building wealth through real estate. And they had mentioned that the first step that they believed to building wealth was basically massive cash reserves, like several times your income. And the justification they gave for that was because a lot of times we'll fuel our spending habit by wanting to invest in things, and sometimes that will cause us to actually not build wealth through saving. And I thought that was an interesting take. So I guess I'm curious to see what other people think about that.
Cool. Yeah, we'll get to that. That's actually a really good tee up for some of our conversation today, about kind of risk versus opportunity and how to think well about that. So I'm mainly making a note. We're not going to answer every question now so much as making sure we're having good conversation. Michelle has asked in the chat, how many streams of passive income do you have or will you have? Is it strictly in real estate, either Amy or Mark or both? Ooh, that's a fun one. Streams o income. We will talk about that. I've got my spreadsheet ready, Michelle, because I thought somebody might ask that. Anyone else have questions? A couple more.
Mark, I'll ask a question. So,
yeah,
as Amy alluded to earlier, so she grew up in a house where you didn't have credit card debt, like that was a poo-poo, don't do that kind of thing. I think a lot of times people get scared of taking on a lot of mortgage debt and then worrying about how you're going to pay that, even though you're building wealth. So, Amy also mentioned about the Dave Ramsey, where it's cash, 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 but leveraging debt is a model that many people have grown very wealthy from. And yet, so what are both of your perspectives on something like that?
Yeah. Okay. So the role of debt in wealth building, what should we think about there? For sure. Kaylee, I think that's how you pronounce your name. A biggest piece of advice for someone just starting out. Yeah, cool. So my goal is that we interact with all of these over the course of the conversation. And so far, so good. No one's gotten too far off the beaten path. Anyone else? Gina asked, Amy, you could address this one quickly. Did Amy focus on sellers versus buyers in her first year?
Anything.
Anything.
Anything I could get my hands on. In my first year, I was just hungry.
Mm-hmm.
I did really teeny tiny little deals that hardly made me anything. But it's just getting experience under your belt. And with that experience, you build confidence. You make mistakes, you learn from them. And whenever you do have that great opportunity, you're less likely to fumble it because you've got some deals under your belt.
Yep. Got to be hungry.
Yep.
Anyone else before we kind of dive into a little bit more of the structured conversation? Angela asked, where did you get your best leads, Amy?
Open houses. I came from retail, so it was an easy transition for me. People are coming into my storefront. I'm making small talk. I'm engaging. I'm getting to know people. I'm getting their contact information, and I'm following up a lot. Follow up, follow up, follow up.
That's
all I
awesome.
did. And I would do as many open houses as humanly possible. I would do at least 2 every Sunday and possibly 2 on Saturday if I could get them. And I would call agents and ask for the open houses, for the houses that I wanted to hold open.
Yep. So as we kind of move into this conversation, let's just address the average American conception as it relates to money. This is not me and Amy as conspiracy theorists or anything like that. It's more just, I think part of building wealth and part of making good decisions is understanding your wiring. Amy talked about, oh, I grew up in a home where this is what we believed about money. And so I want you all to think, hey, what are the conceptions that I grew up with? Is it that wealth was for someone else? Is it that debt is bad? Is it that only invest in the US because of, whatever? What perspectives do you bring in? And I think as we think in really broad brushstrokes about the average American, and you're not, if you're on this call, that means you're probably in real estate, and it means you're probably not the average American, because I would say the average American conception is, get good grades, maybe go to college, but either way, get a good job that has the stability, it has the 401k, it has the benefits, and you sock a percentage away until you're 65, and hopefully you've got enough to live on and until then. And many people will say, oh, it'd be nice to get a nice toy, nice to be able to take a vacation, but that's the average American conception. I think one of the bold laws that some of us were talking about yesterday is do what you've always done and get what you've always gotten. And so the truth is that the average American doesn't achieve financial independence. The average American needs to rely on Social Security in order to make their bills in that stage of their life. They can't afford the big thing that they want. And so part of today's conversation as we talk about money is, how do we change our mindset, and how do we change the math as it relates to actually accomplishing those goals? David Green, for those of you who follow the Bigger Pockets podcast, he's the host of it. He's also a Keller Williams agent based out of Northern California. He recently wrote a book called The Pillars of Wealth. I strong recommend. Anytime there's a book that says wealth, I probably have 12 of them on my shelf. I'm kind of obsessed. But he basically says that there are 3 drivers to building wealth. And he uses kind of a football sports analogy: offense, defense, special teams. Offense, you got to earn money. You got to generate income. So Amy already shared, hey, I went from, a defined lid, which frankly, 70 grand a year with some bonuses, that's not bad.
No.
You weren't poor. You could have some fun. You probably had some freedom and could do the things that you wanted. But you realized that you needed to get a bigger shovel if you really wanted to do some really cool things. To use some Dave Ramsey language. So offense. And that's the first question. I think a lot of times people in the wealth building journey spend more time on YouTube watching people with ideas than they are willing to put in the work to actually increase their income. Amy didn't make her money on YouTube. She made her money going to open houses, meeting buyers and sellers, and putting in the work. The second pillar of wealth is defense. That is protecting your wealth, and I'm not talking about insurance and all of that, or LLCs. We can talk about that if you care to. But are your living expenses a modest percentage of your world? If you make 100 grand a year and spend 100 grand a year, you're no better than the person who makes 30 grand a year and spends 30 grand a year from a wealth building standpoint. You may be having more fun, but you're not building more wealth, and you're certainly not doing what Amy's doing, in earning more with her money than she is with her time. So that's a second question to consider as you're sitting in this room is, hey, does my lifestyle reflect my goals? In other words, am I willing to say no to things today that enable me to say yes to things tomorrow? And then the third pillar is special teams, which is, I'm gonna mute that there. Special teams, which is investing. Okay, I'm earning something. I'm saving the percentage that I'm not spending, and then I'm investing a meaningful portion so that my money can grow. Amy, really quickly, talk with me about your perspective on defense. How, as I've observed your life, you're someone who is conscious in the way that she lives. She likes to spend money in some places and is glad to save money in other places. Talk with me about how you have been thoughtful as it relates to the defense side of building wealth.
At this point in the game, so whenever I first started making more money than I did when I was in retail management, I think I, wanted to buy the fun things that I didn't have before. And maybe did some careless spending because I had the extra income at that point that I could. And then I really started realizing and doing more research and learning more about building wealth, I really don't like to spend money in places that aren't going to make me more money. Right? Do I kind of want to get a new car now because it almost has 100,000 miles? Yes, I do. But thinking about that, like I would much rather use that money to put towards another investment property or put that towards hard money lending where I can get a bigger return on my money. So it's really made me question how I'm spending my money. Now, all day long, I'll spend on experiences because that's what's important to me. I love traveling. I love seeing the world. Like that fuels me. But other things, material things, I could do with a lot less and be happy and be positioning myself with my assets. I want to be to a point where I choose to work. I don't have to work. I choose to do what I do on the active side. So I think it's important really knowing your big why. So whenever you find something that you think you want, you have to weigh that. Is this, do I want this more than my big why, or is my big why going to trump this temporary material thing right now?
Yes, absolutely. That just made me think. So podcast I recommend, and forgive me if I've shared this with some of you before, is a podcast that's relatively new called I Will Teach You to Be Rich. It's modeled after a book with the same title, and there's actually a Netflix series called How to Be Rich, all by the same guy. His name's Ramit Sethi. He's of Indian heritage, but American born and raised. And he talks about people's money dials. You just talked about travel and experiences as your money dial. I like to turn that one up, but the material one, I don't care as much about. And part of wealth building and playing good defense is being dialed into. Everything can't be my money dial, but I can make choices about what my money dial is. He also says, this is one of my favorite kind of conceptions, is to spend extravagantly on the things that you care about, but cut mercilessly the things that you don't. So, hey, I'll buy Walmart jeans and I'll go on a fancy trip. And the world might say, wait, shouldn't the person who goes on fancy trips buy nicer jeans? And you can say, like, no, I don't care about fancy jeans because I want to be able to go on the experience. Which I like. I just like that kind of more valuist approach relative to money. Okay, as we talk more about getting our money to work for us, many of us, so let's talk about financial freedom. Let's talk about kind of the end game. Jill, I'm going to put you on the spot because you're here and you're probably half listening because you hear me talk all the time. But I want to talk about financial freedom, and I'm going to put you on the spot. What does financial freedom mean to you?
Financial freedom just to me means not having to think about things I'm spending. If I want to take a vacation, I can. I'm not scared that my kids are going to college because I have it set. And I could also, I think in financial freedom, you have a lot of passive income. What I am, like, I could exit my job and still be making money. We've started a little investment portfolio, and I'd love to see that grow where that could almost replace our salaries. So if we ever do want to step away or go on a vacation for 6 months or whatever it is, we can. But simply put, right now, financial freedom, and I see my husband on this call, would be if I'm not buying Nordstrom or Walmart jeans, I can buy the Nordstrom ones if I want.
Yes, this doesn't need to turn into a marital counseling session, Jackson. So let's take that offline.
But you could just have a couple pair of the Nordstrom jean, right? You don't need like 50.
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
And I'll plan for them.
But you're right, and I appreciate that. I think many people would answer like, no, for me, financial freedom is like not stressing about either doing the things that I want or accomplishing the things that I want, because I've been planning, like the machine is rolling. But then I think the core of it you hit on also, Jill. Thanks for letting me put you on the spot. Is my passive income earns me more than my active income. And even more specifically, it's when your passive income trumps your living expenses. Because, if I make 100 grand a year, but only need to live on 70 grand a year, I only need my assets to cover that 70 grand. So I want to do a brief exercise to walk you through how to understand the importance of getting our money working as hard as possible. So financial freedom, let's use that as the framework. And Amy, I'll use you as our test dummy here, but I want you all to play along. It starts with monthly income, right? It's not just, hey, I just need to make more money, or I'd love to have millions, blah, blah, blah. It starts with monthly income. So Amy, tell me, what's a number that would make you smile as it relates to, this is what I need to make in a monthly income standpoint in order to feel okay about my life? Setting aside savings. Like, okay, I'm not saving anymore. This is just my world and my.
We're talking about my active income or my passive income or everything together.
No, I only want to know how much you need in order to live on a monthly basis.
Oh, okay.
Or would like to live. This doesn't need to be bare bones.
How much what I live on right now is say 5,800.
That was very specific. I'm going to call it 6 grand just for fun. So if you went to a traditional financial advisor, I know most of you guys are not on video, but many of you have probably done this. They're gonna take you through an exercise to reverse engineer that. Okay, if you want 6 grand a month in income, we're gonna reverse engineer to get to the big number that you need to have saved in order to get there. They're going to utilize something called the safe withdrawal rate, which basically means, so 6 grand a month is $72,000 a year. What lump of money would need to generate $72,000 a year in kind of kickoff in order for you to not be losing money in theory? Anyone know the safe withdrawal rate offhand in the chat or unmuting? Crickets. Most will say 4%. So, the stock market grows over time. And again, I'm operating off of really traditional conceptions around money. And so if I only take 4% of my portfolio off each year to create that $72,000, I'm going to reverse engineer that really quick. Oops. Anyone want to guess what you need in a traditional portfolio in order to create that? Give me a number. Amy, what's your guess?
So the question is how much you need in a traditional portfolio to make $72,000 off of interest. A lot.
Yeah, using the safe withdrawal rate. David, that was good. David, I'm going to ask you to unmute. Was that a total guess, or did you do some math there?
A total guess.
That was pretty good. 1.8 million is the number utilizing a 4% safe withdrawal rate. That's a number, again, that traditional financial advisors are going to say, hey, the stock market comes up and comes down. Inflation eats into that, but once you factor in inflation and the stock market together, you can safely in 95% of cases, is what the Princeton study says. Do that without losing your butt long term. The problem is most of us needed to start yesterday with regards to building portfolios of 1.8 million. Now, if you're on this call and you're 21 years old and you've got extra income, you can get there, frankly, with just some good habits and time on your side. The power of compounding will work in your favor. But if you're not 21 years old and you're in your 40s saying, I know I should have started this 10 years ago, you need to operate under different math. So Amy and I, there's a great podcast out there called Think Like a CEO, where Gary Keller talks about the different types of money. This isn't like fiat money versus cryptocurrency or anything like that. It's the different places where you can put your money. So let me pull this back up. 4 different types of money. And as you think about the places that your money can exist, you can put your money in, let's just spout them off. You can put money in a bank account, savings account. You can put them in checking account. Let's chime in the chat. Where are the different places that you can invest your money? Spout them off, folks. CD, real estate. What else? Bonds. Stock. IRA. Stock. Crypto. I got some money in crypto. Angela, you did some crypto. Okay. Did you lose or did you win? Stocks. Yep. Yeah, a variety of places. And a traditional advisor, and I'm not bashing the traditional industry, though I have some skepticism around it, candidly, is they want you invested in the stock market, and that's often kind of it. They're not going to think creatively. As you think about where to put your money, I want to introduce a couple of categories. And Amy, I'm glad for you to kind of chime in on your journey with these categories. So think about your stage in life. Of course, who wouldn't want to earn more money with their money? But stage in life will factor in. Hey, if you're 62 years old, your sensitivities, your liabilities, and your time frame are very different than somebody's in their early or mid-20s. Think about your life situation. So do you have a bunch of kids? Are you single? Are you in a position of perhaps needing to care for an aging parent? Do you have a major medical situation that's part of your world? Your situation factors in. And then your general tolerance as it relates to risk. Some people are, hey, I never want to lose any money. I don't care that it's not earning much. I just don't want to lose any money. Other people say, hey, whatever, let's get footloose and fancy free here. And I'm okay with that. So understanding your stage in life, understanding your risk profile, understanding kind of the factors around is essential here. The final one would be how passive versus active you're looking for your investments to be. Pet peeve of mine with real estate is that people talk about real estate as a passive. Oh, it's my passive income. It's like, yeah, it's unearned income, but if you're doing it, you're probably doing something. So let's not call it fully passive. Things are on a continuum with super active. Your job is super active. Selling houses is super active. The stock market is about as passive as it comes. Real estate's like here from an investing standpoint. So it's all on a continuum. Amy, talk with us a little bit about you as you think about your strategy and some of the things you're doing. Tell us about kind of who you are with relates to understanding your situation, your timing, your sensitivities, your risk tolerance.
Yeah. And with the podcast, with with Gary Keller and Jay Papazan. I really like how they laid that out. Like they kind of laid this graphic out. Here's the passive income streams. And there's passive lending and there's passive ownership. And then there's active lending and active ownership. And real estate is on the active ownership side. And as you go kind of from the passive to the active, it gets more risky, a higher rate of return possibly, but it gets a little riskier whenever you get on those active sides. My personal situation, I don't have children. It's me, and real estate is what I know. So I like the active, I guess, riskier side of the spectrum. For me, I don't feel like it's that risky because this is what I specialize in. This is what I know the best. And I want to have control of my money. And because I started later in the game, I didn't really start making great money until I got into real estate. And then I had many years that I didn't do anything with my money, but let it sit in my account. I may have did like a high yield savings account and got 4 or 5% interest out of it. But I started later in the game just because I had to like learn to let go. That now the things that I really specialize in are rentals and hard money lending. Hard money lending is something that I've recently gotten into this year, and I'm like all in on it. And being at Keller Williams and having already the structures in place, I've been able to learn a lot about it in a really quick time frame. And it's a cool thing because I'm able to use kind of my unfair advantage of being a real estate agent, going in and getting first crack at these properties, flipping them to a group of investors or some investors that I work with. And I'll just basically say, hey, this is the deal that I have. If you want this deal, I want to do the lending on it. And then on the flip side, that's a listing for my real estate business. So it all works hand in hand together. And I like being the matchmaker. That's exciting for me. And I'm making a great return on my money, and it's fueling my real estate business.
I'm going to introduce the 4 types of money, and then I want to circle back on some of what you just said there. And I'm also going to try to pin you, Amy. So, oh yeah, Eric, I can see you better. And I'm going to put myself right there. So I feel like looking at all the tiles can be a lot. So they talk about 4 different types of money. And as we talk through this, I want you all to think about where your money is. And your money probably is in multiple places. It should be in multiple places. If all it is in a checking account, that's bad. If all it is in real estate, then you're broke. And so you need money in multiple places, but there's 4 kind of categories. One is dead money. So write these 4 down as we go, because I think this is a helpful audit as you look at your financial world. Dead money is any money that is earning 0 to 2%. It's your checking account. It's cash that you keep somewhere. It's low interest savings account. It's the money that more often is going to be functional. And a lot of people who are risk averse are going to put a lot of money there. The risk with dead money, Amy, I'm going to put you on the spot. Why would you call that dead money?
It's not doing anything. And you're literally not keeping up with inflation.
Right.
So by doing nothing, it's actually losing value the longer it sits there.
Correct. Yes. Yeah. I'm glad you said that. Yes, it's not doing anything, but worse than that, the economy that we're in, we talk about what's happened since COVID, we talk about interest rates, really our inflationary environment is what's caused so many problems. And so if you've got money, hey, I'm risk averse, I don't want to take any risks, so I'm just going to put all my money in my checking account. That's actually the greatest risk you can take, aside from, betting on some horse.
Vegas.
You're literally losing money every month. Traditionally, we expect, he says dead money is 0 to 2% because we're looking for inflation to be around 2, maybe 3% per year. But let's be real, over the course of the last couple of years, it's been 4, 5, 6%. And so you're going backwards, and your money is slowly getting eaten away when it's sitting in the dead zone. So your step with dead money is to reduce it as low as possible. Your checking account exists as a functional tool for money to move through and for bills to get paid. That's it. You're not saving any money in your checking account, because you can access the next tier to help you should other things arise. The next category is safe. Safe money is 2% to 5%. That's money that, in theory, shouldn't be getting eaten away at least too quickly by inflation. It's earning some interest, nothing that's going to change your family tree, but is working for you, and you're not losing it. Safe money is going to be CDs were mentioned before, bonds were mentioned before, money market accounts, which are basically, it's another form of savings account. These accounts should always be pretty liquid. And when I say liquid, most of you know what that means, but that means money that I can easily access. I can either within a month or two, CDs are often, that matures in 3 months, so I can't access it until 3 months from now. That's pretty liquid. But my recommendation is you want to have things like your emergency fund in kind of a safe zone. Mine is in a high yield savings account, which earns me 4.8% right now. Something like that. It fluctuates every couple of months, but I'm not like pumped about that. But I have probably 20 grand in a high yield savings account that it's just, hey, if tires go out, if my income was lower and I needed to, to account for something, if an unexpected expense arises, I should be moving money from my safe account into, the checking to get it moving there.
And that's exactly what I do, Mark. Like, I know my personal and my business expenses, I'll keep 3 months in like my checking and savings. I could really keep less. I'm sorry, my checking for my personal and my business. And then the overflow goes into my high yield savings, which is like a holding tank, getting 4.8, 5% interest. Again, mine fluctuates too.
Mhm.
That's kind of the holding tank before it goes out and works and investments that I put it to.
That works. I do the exact opposite of that. So I get paid into my high yield savings account, and then I cut myself a monthly check into the, it's an automatic deposit of
Yeah.
our standard living expenses. And then so it's less for me to worry about. And sometimes I need to transfer a little bit more from the high yield savings into our checking in case, something happened. But it's the same concept.
Right. That's a smart idea because you're making more interest then.
Yes. Yep. Brett Tanner, he directs the KW Wealth community, he talks about having a war chest.
Yeah.
And that's basically, okay, the money comes in, and then once it gets above a certain line, I'm going and I'm making my moves from there. And so it's the same idea. And so for those of you, as you're thinking structurally, okay, I need to have a mechanism to pay bills. For me, I pay most of my bills on my credit card, and then I pay off my credit card monthly through auto pay. And so it's like, okay, I'm earning points. I'm not carrying a balance. I'm not a fan of high interest rate debt, which we can talk about.
I do exactly the same thing. I pay everything on a credit card that gives me rewards. That's what I use. I never pay for airfare. All rewards.
That's cool. Travel hacks with Amy. So, all right, that's safe, 2 to 5%. Everyone should have money kind of moving through safe and dead, working together, but not too much. You don't want, frankly, more than, a few months worth of expenses, in my opinion, in that place. And again, if you're more risk averse, you may say, I'd like a year's worth of expense in there. Blake, you made a comment about, healthy cash reserves. I don't think a year's worth of cash reserves is wise if you're wanting to grow your wealth, but that's all kind of a level of risk aversion. All right, so the next
most
category,
people do 3 to 6 months of living expenses. I feel comfortable with that.
Yep, same. I have a hard time not investing my money.
Once you start, it's hard to stop. It's hard to get started, but once you start, it's hard to stop. Yes.
So third category is healthy. Healthy is anything. I think he said 5 or north of 5 to 9%, kind of the high single digits. This is money it's above inflation for sure, probably a few percentage points above that. And this would be kind of where traditional investing forms would. Hey, if you're investing in index funds, mutual funds, what your financial advisor would probably have you in. Most would say, I think if you look at the stock market, and that's the broad-based stock market, it's not tracking any individual stock, over the course of the last 100 years, right around 8% is what you'd expect to earn there. Again, and there's some years where you're earning 25%, and there's years where you're losing 25%, but over time, the stock market has been a really solid bet. And so that's a great place. And if you're someone who's like, I'm afraid of the more fancy stuff, the technical stuff, I don't want to be a landlord or a lender or a business owner necessarily. There's nothing wrong there. The problem with the healthy category is you're probably not going to race to your dreams on the healthy category. You can grow. Hey, my portfolio grew by a few $1,000s this year, whatever it is, depending on your situation in life. But it's not like, oh, okay, we're moving the needle. And then the final category is the wealthy category, and that's anything north of 10%. I think I'm off on the numbers there. I think they actually said it was more like in the teens in order to be wealthy on up, but don't kill me for being slightly off there. And so wealthy then is, hey, you might get lucky with a stock, an individual stock. You might get lucky with crypto. I know we talked about early. I bought some crypto about 10 years ago and it's worked out. But that's not like a strategy for me at this stage. But that's where real estate, that's where private lending comes in. That's where owning businesses comes in. That's frankly where Keller Williams profit share comes in, because you didn't invest a dime and you earned something off of it. So that's technically infinity percent from a strict math standpoint. And so really the goal, as we think through these four buckets, is you should probably have money in each of them, but you're going to build wealth the more you have in the fourth category. That's where early retirement comes. That's where your assets earning more than you do comes on a fast track. Amy, let's go a little bit deeper. You shared with us kind of conceptually how you set up money in your world, but take us deeper. Walk us through your journey to getting into the rental space and the lending space. How do they work together? What kind of system have you set up as it relates to money in your world?
Mm-hmm. So kind of like we had talked here, I do work with a financial advisor and they invest in stocks. Do I know anything about stocks and bonds and cryptocurrency? No, I know nothing about it. So I hire a professional to do that piece of it for me. I'm more hands-on with the real estate. I first started with rentals. Rentals, you don't get rich quick with rentals, but it is a steady income that you can have every single month that you can depend on. And something that is amazing for rentals whenever you are a realtor is the tax deductions that you can get from rentals. The first year that I owned a lot of the properties, I was able to do advanced appreciation. Huge tax deduction. Taxes are always a big thing for us. At the end of the year, we get hit with this huge lump sum. So it's a great way to help offset your taxes. Each one of my doors, I make maybe $300 per door per month. I'm not setting the world on fire with my rentals. However, the tax, and then I'm appreciating just by owning the buildings, appreciating year over year. So when I go to sell those, I'm going to make more than, what I bought them for.
And without going deeper than necessary, I'm assuming, did you buy those in traditional ways? I'm putting 20% down, investor loan sort of situation?
I bought those traditional.
Okay.
Yes.
You're not house hacking or anything.
I'm not house hacking, but I also waited like a long time in life to do anything. So I had a nice lump sum that I could throw at investment properties.
Yep.
And, there's a lot of different ways you can do it, owner financing, things like that. What is the loan that you plan for future income? Like there's a lot of ways to do it if you don't have the 20 to 25% down, if you're willing to get creative. Yeah. They're riskier. But there are other ways to do it. And then just recently I got into hard money lending. You know, in the past, I have done flips with my ex-husband. I would identify the properties always, and it was always when I was on a listing appointment.
Mhm.
In my listing packet, I always had information about the Buy It Now program, just a cash as is offer. And this is one of the beautiful things about being a real estate agent. We get first crack at these things.
Yep.
And sometimes this is the right solution for people, especially in estate situations where the property maybe needs some love and is full of a bunch of belongings that nobody wants or needs, and it's really just a burden. This is the perfect avenue for some of these folks. Now, whenever I was married, we would do it together and we would flip the properties and, you know, make a lump sum from that. But that was very active.
Sure.
Now that it's me, I don't have the know-how to flip properties and fix plumbing and electrical and those things. So hard money lending was a nice transition for me. So I can still be involved in a flip process, but not in the nitty-gritty of it. And Wealth by Design already has this whole system laid out with how much to charge, how much they charge, how much origination fees are, all the paperwork. So I just kind of plugged into that and started doing my own things. So whenever I find an opportunity like this, I have a group of investors that I call and offer them the opportunity and say, I want to do the lending. And then I list it on the back end as well.
Mm-hmm.
And the way we do that is I always do 5% over prime. So it floats depending what prime is. And it's always a 6-month time frame.
Mm-hmm.
For the property to get closed and for me to get paid back the money that I put out for the purchase of the property. And then I'll put out some money for a little bit of the renovations as well. And then the interest coming back in the origination fee.
Sure.
Do you want me to go into any more detail about that?
No, that's good. But that's what that is, you know, we always say, oh, don't put all your eggs in one basket, diversification. Like those are like classic perspectives on finance. And what you've done, Amy, and what others who are smart have done in this business is, like I said earlier, realize the unfair advantage you have. You know more than the average person does about real estate. You have more contacts than the average person has in the real estate space, and you got money to work. And so you've created a mechanism where your rentals are kind of on the side. That's okay. I'm growing my real estate portfolio. I'm growing my net worth and some passive income or unearned income in that way. And then the lending is frankly, it's a tool in your belt to provide value to your people. And so you're earning money with your money, and you're earning active income because you're getting that opportunity, the listing opportunity, when they do it. And so some would say, oh, you've got all your eggs in the real estate basket. And I would say you win when you bet on the things that you've got an unfair advantage in.
Mm-hmm.
And so you could go and put a bunch of money in cryptocurrency, but you don't know any more than the average person does there. You do in the real estate space.
Right.
And all of that money, so your rental investment and your your loans are well north of the 10%. And so your world is operating pretty highly in that healthy money zone. What percentage of your world, and again, no more details than you feel comfortable sharing, but what percentage of your world is operating in either the real estate portfolio or the private lending as a percentage of your net worth?
That's a good question. I would say probably 70%.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because I'm also not a fan of like tying up my money and in stocks and things that it has to sit there for years. I want like all my stuff liquid all the time.
Yep.
So if there's something real estate related that I want to jump on, I can jump on it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that makes sense. And I wouldn't have been surprised if the number was even higher, knowing how excited you are about this. My model, I'm doing some different things, and this I'll loop back to Michelle's question here, and Amy, you can chime in on this if you'd like. She asked the streams of income. For me, my journey and my perspective is the more things I have working for me. So Robert Kiyosaki, who wrote Rich Dad Poor Dad, wrote the Cash Flow Quadrant. He's kind of the father of financial independence in some ways, and I don't agree with him on everything, but he describes your money as little soldiers and or little employees. Like, are they working for you or are they not? And so my obsession is, how can I get as much of my money working for me, growing, and also kicking money back to me? So I probably have 26 streams of income right now. And some of those might be small. None of those are life-changing on their own, Michelle, but my goal, as I think about setting goals for myself, I set financial goals every year. My goal is to add 2 streams of income every year, and for my net worth to grow by more than I earned in that year, which is kind of similar, though not quite as ambitious as what you're doing, Amy. And so as we think about both growth and stability, yes, I could do more, work harder, crank out more widgets. And in one sense, that's hard. Like my wealth building journey is fueled by my ability to work and to earn. If I'm not earning, then this would be a whole lot harder and a whole lot slower. But my whole perspective is, the more legs of the stool I can add, the more stable I'll be, and the more growth I'll accomplish. And so the more I do that, like I've got rentals. We have 17 rental doors right now. And I'm counting each of those as a stream, And so right now I've got 2 of them that are vacant, and one of them that's dealing with I've got a contractor that's been a little bit difficult. It's taking slower to turn over. And if that was all that I had and all of my money was in that basket, I'd be freaking out right now. Right now I'm annoyed because I just wish he would get it done and that we wouldn't be where we're at, but it's okay. I'm not losing sleep. One of the concepts that's been key for me, and Amy, feel free to chime in on this, and then I'd love to open it up for questions, is this concept of the velocity of money. So let's talk about passive income. Okay, I've got a rental house. It's earning me a few $100s a month in true profit. I could choose to go out to dinner with that money. I could choose to get clothes with that money, any number of valid things, or I could choose to act like that money isn't real and I'm just going to keep it in the business. So part of what's enabled me to grow as someone who hasn't made much money for much of my career is the fact that I never pay myself out of my investments. It's, hey, this money is reinvested. I'm either paying down a mortgage more or I'm saving up more, but I'm not paying myself to live on it, because I want that gaining steam. So the more you invest, the more time you add to it, the more velocity can happen, so long as you keep that money plugged in. And so part of my obsession is, how much can my investments earn on a monthly basis? And I have to keep it plugged in order to do that. Amy, do you want to comment on that? Like the importance of keeping your money at work as opposed to in, out, and around?
Right. Well, number one, I'm really impressed with 26 streams of income. That's wild, Mark. It's wild.
You could be there next year if you want.
I'm jealous. I want to get there. Yeah, I mean, like we were saying with the concept of dead money, if it's not out there working for you, you're actually losing money. So thinking of money, like kind of changing your mindset around the way you're thinking about your money and what it's doing is life changing. Mm-hmm. It's just your mindset around it. I mean, as far as my passive income streams, I talked a lot about them already. My rentals, my passive income's probably the biggest one. Profit share, my high yield savings, I get a decent amount of that every year. And then I'll partner with some agents to work leads out of my database that I get a referral fee from. Just always trying to strategize how you can be more efficient with your time. And still create income, kind of working smarter, not harder, is what I'm always challenging myself to think, and trying to be creative to uncover opportunities and think outside the box.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. We rambled a bit, and I need to look back at the questions that were asked. So Rich asked about debt. Talk with me about your perspective on debt, Amy.
I think, for me growing up, the way that I did, like, you don't have debt, you pay off your house, you pay off this, you pay off that. Like, even just recently, my mom was talking about paying off her house. I'm like, why would you do that? You have a 3% interest rate. You could take that money and invest it and make 8%, the average in the stock market. Like, why would you take that money and pay off a debt that you're paying literally nothing on? And going and really going and the Kiyosaki, like listening to him. He's extreme, but
Yeah.
he's all about leveraging debt to make income. And whenever you start realizing these are assets, these are things that are going to make me money per month. I'm going to be able to pay this mortgage and then put X amount of dollars in my pocket. You get a different mindset around it.
Absolutely.
Now, you need to know what's going to pay you back. Like a lot of
Right.
things that you could purchase, you're not going to make money on every single month, but there are opportunities you can leverage somebody else's money to make you money every single month.
Yeah, I share the perspective. I'm of the mind that all debt is bad with the exception of mortgage debt. And so pay off your student loans, pay off your car loan, pay off your credit card. Like you don't want those hanging around. But mortgages are tools to build your wealth. I feel pretty strongly about that. What other questions do you all have? We're at 3 o'clock. But what questions does this create for you, for either Amy or I? Gina just asked, what did the buy it now packet consist of? Did you offer a price on the property right then and there at the listing?
So the buy it now, it's really just like a half a page in my listing packet with another program that I offer. I forget what the other program is, doesn't matter. But and I don't always talk about it, but if it's a situation where I think this could be a good avenue for the seller, I'll 100% talk about it. Sometimes with my comps, if I have a range of condition, I'll be able to make the offer right then. Sometimes I have to do a little bit more research and circle back. The only thing with that, I will say, you have to be careful when doing that, and you need to make sure that the seller knows the market value and what you're willing to pay as the cash buy it now option. And that could be you're the cash buy it now option, or that could mean your investor is the cash buy it now option. If you don't know how your investor works their numbers, they might need to come up with a number. You might not need to come up with a number, but like you want the seller to clearly understand market value and what the cash buy it now is. And I've even had them, this is, I think what you're supposed to do, have them sign off on an addendum saying that they understand that, to keep ourselves as realtors out of hot water.
Yep. Angie asked, should you use the same bank for mortgage and savings? Doesn't matter, Angie. I think this is a relationship business. And so if that strengthens our relationship, great. Local banks may not always have the most competitive lending terms. So I'm always encouraging folks to shop that stuff. But it's more about
Mine are all over the place too.
Same. I'm a hot mess. Kaylee asked earlier, advice for people starting out. Kaylee, there's only one E at the end, but I'm hoping I'm pronouncing that accurately. The best possible thing you can do, and I feel very strongly about this, depending on where you're at in your age and stage of life, house hacking. So house hacking is buying a duplex or quad, something that may not be your dream home long term, living in one side and renting however many other units there are. The reason that that's powerful is that you can get in for 3 to 5% down. Like you can get in as an owner occupant financing, but you can become an investor that way. My wife and I, that's how we started. I made $28,000 the year that we bought our first duplex. I put $8,600 down at a 3 or 5% down on this duplex in St. Louis. And we rinsed and repeated. We moved a number of times utilizing owner occupant financing. And on the other side, it's like, oh, we have a small portfolio that we're now in a position to do something with. A lot of people say, oh, I can't invest in real estate because I need to save 25 grand in order to do it, to get started. And that's true unless you're willing to move and for the home that you live in to be that first journey.
I love that, Mark, because I always say this, especially to first-time home buyers. If I could go back and do it again with the knowledge that I have now, I would 100% be in a multifamily.
Yeah.
And then a lot of people do that where they buy, they go and do like a slow flip on it. They live there, they fix it up. Once it's done, they move to the next. I think that's great too, because you get the down payment of an owner occupant. But the multifamily for your first, I think, is 100% the way to go.
And if you're already living in a single family and you don't want to, and that you own, and you don't want to do that, someone say, oh, where should I find an investment property? And I'll tell them, you're probably living in it right now. Move and hold it. And obviously we need to evaluate the numbers. My family, before we relocated from St. Louis back to Northeast Ohio, we moved one time in St. Louis. Like, we lived in a house, single family house. We owned a couple duplexes, and we said, ooh, let's move one more time to pick up one more occupant property. And we moved, and we had 3 kids at the time. People say, oh, I've got kids, I can't do that. We moved into a big kind of mixed use triplex that we slow flipped, bought for $290, sold for $390 2 years later, after putting like 18 grand into it. And my wife was willing to sacrifice for that. So being willing to sacrifice and do kind of short-term pain for long-term gain is worth it if you're in a position to do
And
it.
whenever you're younger and you don't have, or wherever stage you are, you don't have a ton of money to throw at it, the sweat equity, right? A lot of you can gain a lot of equity in properties just by painting and doing some flooring.
Absolutely. Any other questions? Well, this is fun. I love this stuff, Amy, and I know you do too. Thanks for sharing a little bit about what you're up to. And I know that you're going to crush that goal every year because you've got a plan and you're working it. So
Well, thank
at
you. It
it.
was really fun. And I get so geeked out about this stuff. So always excited to share and learn more.
Yeah, here. As anyone has questions or thoughts, please feel free to reach out to either of us. We're glad to be open books for you. Bethany, thanks as always. See y'all.
Thanks, guys. Bye.